What's up, guys? How are you? Welcome back. This is your brother, your boy Hebot, coming at you again with another video. And I want to talk about real quick about the topic that they were talking about the other night on the Exile podcast, which I wasn't able to really answer because I kind of cut off because my daughter called me and I was on my phone doing the podcast and I couldn't really come back in. And that was about the Jim Ryan topic. So basically, Jim Ryan has become the gaming executive meme in the gaming community. Because this is the guy that we all know came out, right? This is the guy that we all know came out and publicly and said, we do not need backwards compat, right? Yet the irony of the situation is that the PS5 is releasing and coming out with a 3-year-old remaster of Demon's Souls. Right? And then he comes out and says things like that they don't need to, or Microsoft should stop buying all these studios, they do because they don't need to compete, something to that nature, in that sense, because they do it organically. Which, if you guys don't know what organically means, it means you take an existing studio that you own and you split it and you build another studio, which is the furthest from the truth, because if that's the case, you build Insomniac Games organically. Insomniac Games been existed. They were their own entity. So was Guerrilla Games. So was Sucker Punch. So was Naughty Dog, for Christ's sakes. It's like I said before in another one of my videos, that I've done in the past, that the Sony period, the PlayStation division, since they came on the scene, in gaming, they basically, right, bought everything out. That's what they did since the Sega Saturn era when they first came out. Because they had billions and billions of dollars even back then, because they were the most popular brand in the world for electronics. That's what they were, electronics. They made TVs, radios. To this day they still do, phones, TVs. And back then, they were number one around the whole world, right? Globally. So when they came on the gaming scene after they had the debacle when Nintendo basically cut them off because they were trying to jerk Nintendo after Nintendo paid for the R&D for the PlayStation console because it was supposed to be their next successor to the Super NES, being that they wanted a CD-based game console like the Saturn or the Sega Saturn was. And then Sony wanted profits from not only the units but from each disc, because they were using their CD disc based technology for the console as well. It would have ultimately meant that Sony was making more money than Nintendo for their own stuff and property after they paid for the R&D. That's why initially it was going to be called the Nintendo PlayStation, right? All Sony did was came in, because Nintendo didn't patent the hardware and the engineering, put in a brand new 3D chip. And after they put the brand new 3D chip, they renamed it the PlayStation, the Sony PlayStation, right? And there's a lot of, stories and different historical facts and publicly out there that explains the whole thing, right? And all they did was buy every single IP that came out, from Crystal Dynamics, Tomb Raider, Resident Evil, Final Fantasy, Metal Gear Solid. They didn't make none of those games. Those studios were none of their studios. They just bought the rights to the third parties and sold the console with third party only. And till this day, all those people that ever affiliated themselves with Sony or Sony owns is companies that they bought, developers that they bought, and then a few that they build, which I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it was Santa Monica that they build, Sony Japan, or like Japan Studio, right? I know that. And there was, I think, another one, and SOE, and you know they closed down SOE. So he's saying Microsoft shouldn't be spending all this money, like he's upset or like he's salty about it. But I really think that the perspective of Jim Ryan is he's frustrated. It's coming from a person that has a big task in front of him to compete with a conglomerate giant like Microsoft this generation, knowing all the heat and knowing all the shade that they threw at them this past generation with the Xbox One, and now going into this generation, they have the upper hand in every way, shape, or form with the Series X and the S, and hardware and studios, silicone that from the hardware, features and all that stuff, right? That he knows is going to be a long-term battle. So his frustration is starting to kick in. So when he talks to people and they say things like, well, what are you going to do? Or how is Sony planning to fight and counter-fight this generation with Microsoft doing big acquisitions like Bethesda, right? The only way he can respond is by saying something outlandish and ludicrous. Like, why is it that they keep buying? They shouldn't be buying. They should be building stuff organically. And like Sega Man said in the podcast where everybody was laughing, they don't need to do that. Microsoft doesn't need to do that because Microsoft, well, they have money. But at the same time, people seem to forget, Microsoft bought studios, okay? And this is what I don't understand, why people keep fussing or even fussed about the whole deal with Bethesda with their studio. Because Microsoft needed to buy studios because they are lacking studios. They didn't have a lot. And that was a big reason for them, right? Not having enough AAA games in the works, back them up, for them to be able to counterattack, right, the drought that they had of AAAs, right? Not games in certain sense, because they had single A's and a couple of double A's. More about the drought with the AAAs that they had in between, 2017 to 19 or 2020, whatever, around that, that range that you guys know, was because of that. It was because they didn't have enough studios working on projects that were already existing to be able to fill the wedges and fill the space in those projects or with those projects during that time of transitioning and rebuilding the company and the Xbox division and the brand to make it better, right? So I don't understand the logic of people getting upset about it, because they had to build studios, and in order to build studios from scratch, one, it takes long because you got to keep on paying and building, and two, it's a lot easier to buy also existing studios that are in the market that have pedigree and have experience, so that you can make the projects that you need to make to fill in your gap of library, or even for Game Pass for the future, right? For this gen, faster and quicker. So that was the logic and thought process behind Microsoft buying the studios. And this was something my son and I talked about when it was about to end with the 360 era, before the Xbox One. Because we saw it, that they were lacking studios. They needed more studios to build ground, and that's why they were in that position with the Xbox One. But they weren't able to do that because, again, as we all know, the Xbox division was making money, but it wasn't Microsoft's, the company, priority. It was looked at as just something extra. They really didn't look at it as a powerhouse within the company that was bringing them revenue. Not until Phil was able to show them and prove to them the numbers it did with the Xbox One, from 2015 to 16 and 17, where the numbers kept rising and growing because of Phil and his leadership. And so therefore, that's when they took it serious. Satya had his back, made him the head of everything video games in the Xbox division, and gave him a purse that was open to whatever they needed to do for the future of Xbox, the studios, Game Pass, services, cloud, so forth and so forth. Just like Sony made a deal with them, which it believes it's supposed to take place in this generation, for the Azure service for the online ecosystem and structure. So, that's what I wanted to say about what I think is going on with Jim Ryan. I think it's more of frustration and not really something that he's just salty. It's because he knows the task at hand that he has is very big, and he also knows that he doesn't really have a winning fighting chance because of the capital. Microsoft has, just to put it in perspective, $150 billion, which they announced and they had informed and said it recently, to spare to buy and do things with Xbox and the Xbox division. Ubisoft is worth $10.5 billion. So they can buy Ubisoft and still have $139.5 billion left to buy and do other things. Or rather, 110.5. Sorry for those of you that come over here later and be like, you did the math wrong, Hebot. You know what I mean? Still have $110.5 billion to spare. To put that into perspective, I feel bad for Jim Ryan. I wouldn't want to be in his position. No matter how smart he is, I don't think no intelligence is going to be able to fight the type of bank wealth that Microsoft has versus what Sony has. So they got to work with what they have. So they have to create organically to save money, and it makes sense. And that's okay. That's okay. That'll just mean they have to do smaller projects, which they said that last generation, before it ended, that they were going to have to make games smaller and less, bigger and lot less shorter, because they saw this coming to fruition when they realized the position they were in going into this gen. That's why they're saying possibly this will be the last PlayStation 5. That's why they've done so much things to minimize, right? And cut corners, like not even allowing, backwards compatibility with peripherals, because that takes research and development, which I think they were not able to put and implement with money to the course of the R&D of the PS5. That's why they're lacking so many things, like full-on backwards compat, at least with PS4, and obviously we know not with PS1, 2, or 3. So I feel bad for his position because I wouldn't want to be in his shoes. And it's not that the man's dumb. I'm not saying that at all. But no intelligence in the world can fight money or having a big bank. I mean, that's why, if that was the case, you wouldn't see so many people around here and around the world, and even on YouTube, you can see it, that can't even speak properly, and yet they got money and they're millionaires and have all this money because of a little project they did that they were good at and was able to make millions. And that just proves that it's not the intelligence, it's the purse, the capital that you have and that you can use. Leave a thumbs up if you like, leave a thumbs down if you didn't like, guys. That's all I wanted to say. And E-Rock, you better give me more time to speak, because you don't have enough time on your podcast for an hour and a half to have all your people speak on the panel, because there's a lot of great folks with a lot of great intellect and things they want to say. So it's just never enough time, people. That's the honest truth. I'll see you guys in the next one. Hopefully I'll be doing We Got Next soon, because people have been asking and I've been trying, but it's just been busy. And I've been feeling better, but I'm still busy and still trying to get better. Share this video with someone you think might like it. Let me know what you think down in the comments about what I said. If you agree with me, if you don't agree with me. If you think I'm stupid and I don't know nothing, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's all conversation. As long as you're respectful, I can deal with that. I'm okay. I'm a big boy. I'm an adult. And then, as always, Share this video with someone you think might like it. I'm on Instagram if you want to check me out. I'm on under C_respect. On Twitter, I am under Hebot Powerful Gamer. And if you guys ever want to help me out in any way, shape, or form, you know how you can do it. It's all down in the description below. And if you want to donate anything to the channel to help me out to make more content of something that you might want me to see me do or review, I'll be more than glad to do it. It would be my pleasure. Just DM me and we'll work out the particulars. Guys, Xbox for life, like a sickness, they cannot be cured. That's my saying. That's my slogan. Don't get triggered, people. It's all gaming. It's all in good fun. Love you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.